Hello, viewers. This is the first lecture on modern history. If you are preparing for SSC CGL or you're having this chapter in your topic, then please pay attention. Today's lecture will constitute of basically this video is going to discuss the topics written, but we are going to start from a little behind. We know that the Britishers they came to India in the year 1600. They came in as traders. We know that the East India Company came in for trading in India. Now, this is the East India Company. They had their exclusive right of trading in India, and this was a charter that was granted to them by Queen Elizabeth I. Now, while the British started as a trading company in India, they slowly started getting into the governance of India. So, in the year 1765, the company that had a purely trading function obtained Diwani. What is Diwani? Diwani is basically right over revenue. So now the company could collect revenue and also civil justice. So they were entering the legal system of Bengal, the revenue system of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. So this was just a step inside. They were starting their career, they were starting the journey as a territorial power. They were trying to gain governance over India. Now, in the year 1858, we know the Sepoy Mutiny occurred, and that was the time when, in this situation of the Sepoy Mutiny in the 1858, the British Crown assumed direct power. They started taking direct responsibility of Indian governance, and this governance started until India was granted independence on the 15th day of August 1947. Now, we will discuss it in a chronological order under two headings, but we will start with the company rule. Now, the company rule uh, started in the year 1773 and lasted till 1858. Now, as I just said, that in the year 1858, when the Sepoy Mutiny occurred, the Crown Rule got established. So that was when the Crown Rule started in India. So by that we can understand that the Crown Rule started in the year 1858 and it lasted till 1947. Right? So I think this is clear that the company ruled from 1773 to 1858, while the British Crown ruled from 1858 to 1947. Now let us make this clear that the company rule started means that was the time when this governance started. They started gaining territorial power over India. But prior to this, they were a purely trading company. They were just trading. But from the year 1773, they started assuming constitutional importance. Like they started assuming this power of control. They started gaining control over the affairs of the country. They started controlling what's happening in the country. So let us start. The company rule starts with the Regulating Act of 1773. Now, this was the first step taken by the British Crown to control the East India Company. This was where the British Crown was entering the stage of slowly getting into the Indian governance. So, first they started by controlling, like taking control over the East India Company, or that is over the affairs of the East India Company. Now, in the year 1773, the East India Company was also in deep financial trouble. Like they had several debts, not only to the government but also to the Bank of England. While it was a monopoly company in India and also in the East, the company had a lot of shareholders. The company could not pay its due to maintain its monopoly. So the officials so these the British crown started gaining control. The officials were getting richer because they were indulging in private trade, they were receiving gifts and bribes from the locals, but they were doing everything at the cost of the company. So basically the company started making a loss at that point. So, in order to manage all these things, Lord North, who was the then Prime Minister of Great Britain from year 1770 to 1770 to 1782, he decided to implement this Regulating Act of 1773. This act meant that the British government will now have its control over the East India Company. Now, this act had several features, like this act recognized the administrative and political functions of the company. This also was the starting point where the company was gaining the central administration of India. It was a foundation of the central administration in India. So this was actually that, as I just said, that this was the beginning. This was the beginning from where this that is the British crown started entering Indian territory via the East India Company. First it started controlling the East India Company. Now a few changes, not changes, like few implementations happened. Okay, there was a court of directors of 24 members created at London to oversee the affairs of this company in India. Okay, this was a major decision. Till now, the company had was enjoying its monopoly as a company, but because it could not manage its own monetary conditions and all that, the British Crown had to interfere. The next important feature is, till this Regulating Act of 1773, India had the governor of Bengal. Okay, and there were 3 independent presidencies of Bengal, Bombay and Madras. But now what happened is, this independent presidencies, this system changed. What happened is, the governor of Bengal got designated as the Governor General of Bengal, and the first such Governor General of Bengal was Lord Warren Hastings. Now, the Governor General of Bengal attained supremacy. This position attained supremacy over the other two presidencies, who were now made subordinate to the Governor General of Bengal. And what are the other 2 presidencies? That is Bombay and Madras. Now, the governors of the Bombay and Madras presidencies became subordinate of the Governor General of Bengal. Okay. Also, the Governor General of Bengal was now the Governor General of Bengal started having an executive council of 4 members to assist him in his job. Another important factor of this act is that the Supreme Court of Calcutta got established in the year 1774, and it comprises comprising of 1 Chief Justice and 3 other judges who were subordinate to the Chief Justice, like who were inferior to the rank of the Chief Justice, okay, of the Supreme Court of Calcutta. Important takeaway from this is, please note down, the first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Calcutta was Sir Elijah Impey. Okay, this Supreme Court of Calcutta had its jurisdiction spread over Bengal, Bihar and Orissa. This Supreme Court, while it was Supreme Court of Calcutta, but it had judges from Great Britain, thereby basically administering the British legal system here in Calcutta. But there were exceptions, Okay, they had their own rules. This Regulating Act of 1773 also prohibited the servants of the company from accepting any bribe or from engaging in any private trade, which was actually a cause why this company was losing its monopoly, had lost its monopoly at that time, and British Crown had to interfere because the company was running at loss due to such acts by the officials of the company. So this act totally prohibited the servants or the officials of the company from engaging in any such activities. Okay. Now I hope this much is clear. Now this act had some defects in it. Okay. In order to amend this act, the amending act of 1781 got established. This act of 1781 is also known as the Act of Settlement. Now what are these acts of settlement? This act of settlement is basically with respect to the Supreme Court of Calcutta and jurisdiction of Governor General, its council, and the Supreme Court of Calcutta. Like, it was kind of separating their jurisdictions. Okay. Now, as I said, there are various administrative rules or factors related to this. So this act was basically implemented with some such rectifications. Let's have an insight. This Supreme Court of Calcutta was basically meant to have jurisdictions over all the inhabitants of Calcutta, over all the natives of Calcutta, the people who were living in Calcutta, and they were subjected to be administered on the basis of their personal law, the personal law of the defendants. Like, if a person who was being tried at the court was a Hindu, then he was being tried under the Hindu law. If he was a Muslim, he was tried under the Mohammedan law and the like. And this law excluded the revenue matters and matters arising from a collection of revenues from the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court. And also another important thing is that the appeals from the provincial court could be taken to the to be taken to the Governor General and Council, and not to the Supreme Court. The Governor General and Council had powers, like the Governor General and Council was given powers to frame regulations for the provincial court and councils, and the Supreme Court was different. Okay, Supreme Court was different. This act also exempted the officials and servants of the company from the judicial matters of the Supreme Court for all their official actions. So it was kind of a partial law. The next important act is the Pitt's India Act of 1784. The Pitt's India Act is of immense importance. Now, why is it so? Because this was the first time a double government was being established in India. Now, how is that? Earlier, there was this one particular court of directors who were in London managing the affairs of the company, like looking after the affairs of the company in India. But now these court of directors were allowed to manage commercial affairs, but the political affairs were being controlled by a new body that was created through this act, and the new body was called Board of Control. So there was a system of double government established now. One is the court of directors, who were entitled to manage, who were empowered to manage the commercial affairs, while the Board of Control were empowered to manage the political affairs. Now, also the Board of Control had powers to look after all the civil and military government or revenues of the British possessions that were there, like all the military and civil related governance in India that were there under the British possessions. Okay, so the bodies were divided, and not divided, basically a new body was created, Board of Control, which was given special powers to look after these matters. Okay, now this Board of Control was also created in London. It had 6 members, and as we know that, as we just learned, that the Court of Directors had 24 members. It was also stationed, situated in London, and the Board of Control comprised of 6 members, while the Court of Directors were managing the commercial affairs. Now the Board of Control, comprising of 6 members, were empowered to manage all the political affairs inclusive of the civil and military government and revenue of the British possessions that were there in India. Okay. Now, in the board of control, out of the 6 members, 2 members were members of the British cabinet, and the rest 4 members were members of the Privy Council. The board also had a president. This president of the board of control became the minister for the affairs of the East India Company. Okay. So the president of the board of control effectively became the minister of the affairs of the East India Company. Okay, I hope this is clear. So now after this, this East India Company became a subordinate department of its ruler, of its hierarchy. Okay. Now there are a few two significant points that needs to be highlighted with respect to this act. What are they? They are that this act now said that the company's territories in India were then being called the British possessions in India. Like they were no more the company's territories in India. They were called the British possessions in India. Also, second, the British government was given supreme control. The British government was given the control over the company's affairs and administration in India. So as I already said, that this is how the British Crown is entering the governance of India. So you can see that now certain parts of the country were called the British possessions in India. The word possession is extremely important in governance and political affairs, in constitutional matters. So they were clearly saying that these are British possessions in India. They were not meant for trading but for governance. Okay. And also the British government was given the supreme control over the company's affairs and its administration in India. Okay. Now the Governor General was given the greatest power in matters of war, revenue, diplomacy. This act was almost consistent. This is another important thing. This act was almost prevalent and did not undergo any major changes all through the company's rule, till the company's rule ended in 1858 and the crown rule started. Next important thing and the last act that is to be discussed today is the Act of 1786. Now we discussed that during the implementation of the Regulating Act of 1773, the Governor of Bengal was designated as the Governor General of Bengal, and the first Governor General of Bengal was Lord Warren Hastings. Now in the year 1786, Lord Cornwallis became the next Governor General of Bengal. Now he had two demands, which he said that once these demands are accepted, he will also accept the post. This demand was that he wanted to gain supremacy, he wanted to override the powers of the Executive Council. His Executive Council, we just read that in the year by the Regulating Act of 1773, the Governor General of Bengal was also having an Executive Council comprising of 4 members to assist him. Now, Lord Warren Hastings wanted to override his decision on this council with regard to certain special cases. Also, he demanded that he would be the commander-in-chief. This Act of 1786 basically granted him these provisions. This act was enacted, and Lord Cornwallis was granted all his demands, like these 2 demands of his. Now we are going to revise certain important topics. So first we will revise the year of meetings of the International Congress, the venue and the president. So let's start. it's going to be a rapid fire type of thing. We are going to be very fast with it. We are going to learn very fast. We are going to revise some points every day, and you have to be updated every day. So study hard, work hard. Your examination is in the next month. This is already June. Okay, so 1892 and 1885 Bombay under the presidency of W.C. Banerjee. 1886 Calcutta Dadabhai Naoroji. 1893 Lahore Dadabhai Naoroji. 1906 Calcutta Dadabhai Naoroji. 1905 Banaras G.K. Gokhale. 1909 Lahore M.M. Malviya. 1916 Lucknow I.C. Majumdar. 1922, 1923, 1924. These 3 years, the details for these 3 years, that is the venue and the president of the meet of the International Congress, you have to write these in the comment section below. Be quick, learn all that is written and write your answers. Next up, we are going to revise some newspapers and journals that were released during this period. So first, Samvad Kaumudi. It is a Bengali publication by Raja Ram Mohan Roy. Next, Miratul Akbar, Raja Ram Mohan Roy. It is the first Persian newspaper. Kesari, Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Maharashtra, Bal Gangadhar Tilak. Som Prakash, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. Vande Mataram, Aurobindo Ghosh. Navjeevan, M.K. Gandhi. Young India, M.K. Gandhi. Prabuddha Bharat, Swami Vivekananda. Udbodhana, Swami Vivekananda. Now you have to name India's first newspaper. Also write whatever you know about the India's first newspaper, the year, who published, and whatever you can just gather information about this. Write your answer in the comment section below. So you have 2 tasks for the day, so learn really well. Write your answer in the comment section below and keep revising, keep learning. Like, share and subscribe. Thank you.